The Diablo 4 graphics have always been impressive and visually appealing. From the lighting to the shadows and the terrain, it was extremely solid overall, especially the cinematics and the lookout points, which were a personal favorite of mine. As I said, Diablo 4 is compelling and immersive. It's hard not to get chills when you first experience that, especially watching the Temple of the Primes. It truly was impeccable with amazing depth and breadth, and it really just brings you into the world of Sanctuary. However, the more that I have explored through the fog of war, navigating through the open world, the more closely that I've begun to pay attention, and there is one little thing that has been staring me dead in the face that I find very peculiar, and that has to do with the objects and bits of terrain. And just as we're getting immersed into the graphics of Diablo 4, this crashes us right back down to earth, as that honestly straight up looked like Play-Doh and reminded me of Gumby. Now, before you go blasting me for being pedantic and nitpicky, it is an element that is indeed a bit of a head scratcher, as we have a level of inconsistency throughout the world of Sanctuary on the topic of level of detail with these bits of objects in certain terrain. In case you were wondering, I do run all of my settings pretty much on maximum capacity, and I am also running a 3090 EVGA for the win NVIDIA GPU. So with this level of setting customization and GPU horsepower, you should not be seeing inconsistency issues with the geometric complexity that is included in the game. Let's take a look at a live test. As you can see in the live environment of the Path of Stray Souls, focusing on the bodies, we wanted to test the impact of geometric complexity levels. At first, we turned it down to medium, and navigating back, you can see that there is literally zero impact on the level of detail. We then decelerate the settings further into low, once again returning to the bodies, and there is little to no change. Now we decide to work our way back up, and we change the settings from medium back to high. And once again, what you are going to see is that it looks precisely the same from the onset when we first had the initial settings at high. So an interesting detail about geometric complexity is that it is also known as level of detail, or LOD for short. If one were to interpret it as is, you would think setting this to high would benefit all meshes in the world, but as we can clearly see, this is not the case at all. In fact, it is highly inconsistent throughout the world of Sanctuary. We have many scenes and objects with impeccable quality, and then unfortunately you just have straight up Play-Doh. Now, since we just saw Diablo 2 remastered in the form of Resurrected, it dawned on me to actually do a side-by-side comparison of Diablo 4 versus D2R, since Diablo 2 Resurrected also has similar static and interactable objects in addition to arbitrary pieces of terrain. Let's check it out. Kicking things off is Diablo 2 Resurrected. As we go through these instances, you notice how consistent the level of detail and graphics are for D2R. Vicarious Visions really brought the remaster to life. It is hard not to love Diablo 2. Now, as we traverse through Diablo 4's world, you can see how wildly inconsistent the level of detail and graphics are in many of these instances. It is truly hard to believe these games are 2 to 3 years apart, as in a handful of these cases, Diablo 2 Resurrected certainly outclasses Diablo 4. So I want to provide some final thoughts on this. Our main key theory as to why we think we are seeing level of detail issues throughout the open world of Sanctuary in Diablo 4 is that Blizzard is ultimately trying to optimize for performance across the open world, as certain individuals obviously have different component parts in their rig, some higher powered and some lower, but this is really the head scratching element here, because this is the entire point of having customization of settings, the ability to actually throttle things more aggressively and or decelerate accelerating and pulling them back, you should have the ability to actually fine tune and optimize your own personal experience. For the most part, Diablo 4 and the graphics have a very good look and they are strong overall. However, in these micro moments of once you see it, you can't unsee it, sometimes that certainly can dilute and hamper your experience. Again, I am generally still very optimistic and positive with the overall experience. I have enjoyed the World of Sanctuary and Diablo 4 since its release. There just is an unfortunate inconsistency issue with geometric complexity.